everybody. It's Allie, and welcome to our Y&R Chat for Sunday, June 14th, 2020. Here we are, covered in rose petals and up to our eyeballs in champagne for Romance Week. And all week, I've been dealing with a botched roofing job on my house. I have had the most unromantic week ever. It all started on Monday morning, and I've still got repairs going on today. So I am currently keeping one eye on that. And I've got my other eye on my daughter, which is why I am coming to you today in audio form only, as I will probably be pulled away to deal with some new emergency or to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, whichever comes first. So bear with me. If I sound a little exhausted, it's because I am. Let me tell you, this week of all weeks, I need to be inside of a fantasy tent on a private yacht in France. That sounds like the perfect escape. Well, for a little added dose of escape, why don't we start out with a fun poll question? Let me ask you this. Of all of the main romantic gestures that we've seen this week, which one would you most like to receive? Would it be your very own private yacht, just like Victor gifted it to Ashley? Or maybe an Arabian-themed fantasy tent is more your speed? Or how about a casino marriage proposal like Michael gave to Lauren? Or maybe you like something a little more simple, like a declaration of love in the middle of the street. Or maybe you like something more lavish, like a lavish wedding in Provence, like Lily and Kane had. I think that's a fun little topic to chat about this week, keeping it light. YRChat.com is where you can cast your vote to let me know which of those romantic gestures you would most like to receive personally. Now, let me start out by telling you which romantic gesture I would like least to receive. Please don't anybody ever buy me a private yacht. Please. It's just not worth it. Every time I watch The Price is Right and somebody wins a big old boat, I think to myself, what in the heck are they going to do with that thing? Let alone a giant yacht. It would cost a fortune just to store it. And what if you lived in a landlocked state? How would you ever use it? Or me? I mean, what am I going to be, yachting down the Illinois River? I don't think so. So let's just skip the private yacht, and I'll just take the cash value of that particular gift. Because otherwise, I guess if somebody gave me a private yacht, I would feel like I had to just go live in it to be able to justify the cost. Then again, I am a practical girl. I am sure that Ashley Abbott has plenty of resources to be able to store and maintain her private yacht. It's hard not to compare Victor and Ashley's romance with Victor and Nikki's romance. I think that Ashley is so elegant and understated. So the chemistry between she and Victor felt very warm and so smooth. Like Victor and Ashley could be married and happy forever if this were the real world. They seem like a couple that would really function together. But in soap world, we've got Nikki. And Nikki, in total contrast to Ashley, is rough around the edges. Nikki has that sparkle and sass, and she poses way more of a challenge to Victor. Like, Nikki doesn't fit the mold of the rich wife bred to wed. And I think that's why Nikki and Victor's love story has maybe been a little bit more endearing with the fans over the years. But that's not to say that Victor and Ashley weren't every bit as romantic and as lovely. I just think that the difference between Nikki and Ashley was stated perfectly in their 1986 wardrobe choices. And it speaks a lot to the way their relationships with Victor played out. Like, Ashley was sleek and timeless in her gold gown and beautiful, elegant, timeless updo. Nikki was a Cabbage Patch doll. Nikki was puffed up and pink, and she had these big blonde corn silk curls. She was sucking down her champagne on her date with Matt, saying that she was on a freaking rocket ship to Venus. Damn, Nikki, I want to be on a rocket ship to Venus. That most expensive bottle of champagne that you were drinking must have been some really good stuff right there. Did you make sure that Matt didn't slip something in your drink? Because a rocket ship to Venus? Whoa, okay. I mean, I can't even imagine something like that coming out of Ashley's lips. I just think the difference in those two relationships, Victor and Ashley versus Victor and Nikki, were highlighted so beautifully there with the two women and their contrasting personalities. And then Matt was there as the fourth wheel, the never gonna work out guy. And here's the thing. I think this probably won't be popular, but I think maybe I'm realizing now that I don't like Matt. Is that wrong? He seems sleazy to me. Whether he is or not, I don't know. I don't know him. I wasn't watching when he was on. And maybe I don't have enough reference for him, but every time I've seen him, I get creepy vibes. Maybe it's something in the eyes. I don't know. But I also felt that he was rude to the waiter during his date with Nikki. The waiter told Matt that they were out of the most expensive champagne. And Matt said to the waiter, well, you better go find some. What's the waiter supposed to do, Matt? Materialize it out of thin air just because you're on a date? And where did Matt get all of his money? Why does Matt have all of his money? Maybe I just don't know enough about him, so I'm sorry in advance. But maybe it also all felt so especially awkward to me because Matt was picking up Nikki for their date at Victor's house. Victor and Nikki weren't even divorced, and Nikki is now dating his brother, although now not in love with him, clearly probably not going to fall in love with him. I think that Nikki had Victor on the brain and Victor had Ashley on the brain. I mean, Nikki is dating Matt and Victor is telling Ashley to go ahead and make wedding plans. I wonder whatever happened to that wedding gift that Victor gave Ashley. The Forever Ashley yacht. Forever Ashley turned out to be not so forever after all. In 1986, Paul Williams must have been the king of Genoa City. Did you see his awesome 1980s apartment with the neon signs and a bike on the wall? Wow. One of the neon signs even said his name, Paul's, on the walls. It must really grind Doug Davidson to know that Paul's character had his name in neon lights in 1986 on this show, and today he can't even get a script. Maybe we just need to see more of that long, luxurious chest hair that he had to get the fans all riled up again. All of that chest hair stuffed up under his deep teal and white V-neck sweater. It was a thing of beauty, no doubt. Paul and Lauren were making a most radical pair there. And okay, I will not dishonor Lauren by making cracks about her hair and those slicked back sides that gave her a faux mullet. And I'll just not do it. I'll not hold Lauren accountable for her fashion sins of the past. She gets a pass. She's Lauren. Oh. Farren's style was much more 80s subdued, and I thought that she was very compelling. Farren was giving me a young Lara Flynn Boyle Twin Peaks vibe. There was something so mysterious about her driving into the night, not knowing where she was going or who she was. I feel like you could have just dropped her right into a David Lynch film and she would have fit right in. I loved her. And that's the first time I've seen her. The name didn't even ring a bell for me, Farren. If I did my research correct, and I hope I did, I believe that the amnesia she had did eventually recover, and that she ended up learning that she was married to some guy a couple of towns over. And when she learned that, I think that she did try to go back to her old life, but then the husband died and she decided she wanted to be with Andy, and then I think they both exited the screen together. I think they both went off into the sunset together. And Farren, I don't think ever came back, but I do remember Andy Williams. Was it Williams? Was Williams his last name? Andy Williams? And is that right? He did make a brief comeback in the time after I started watching the show, and he was working at Paul's detective agency, but then he left and nobody ever mentions him. And was he Paul's brother? Like a half-brother or something? I'm not sure. Ooh, I wonder what he's up to today. Is he still around? He could be someone to bring back to do some developing around Paul and the Williams family. I mean, they look like they could be brothers. Paul and Andy look like they could be long-lost brothers. Andy Richards. They're not brothers, but that's all the more reason, the fact that they look so similar, that Y&R should bring him back and make him Paul's long-lost brother. Yes, why not? Oh my goodness, I remember him. I remember just a touch maybe. Joanna Manning. I don't think I saw her in her heyday, and certainly not in 1986, but I saw her a little bit down the road. First of all, I have to start out by saying the actress is great. Susan Seaforth Hayes. She's probably better known for her role on Days of Our Lives, and she's probably a better fit for Days of Our Lives. I mean, she's been on that show for decades as Julie, and I think she really works there. But I sure enjoyed her scenes on Y&R this week from '86. Joanna is Lauren Fenmore's mother. And they had a complicated relationship. I'm pretty sure that they're not even on speaking terms right now after Joanna testified on Jill's behalf at the hearings that resulted in Lauren losing half of the Fenmore's business because Jill was revealed to be Neil Fenmore's daughter. But I can totally see Joanna and Lauren as mother-daughter. They seem like a perfect match. I wouldn't mind seeing them together a little bit more today. Joanna, however, was not a perfect match for John Abbott. Her cockiness, in a way, kind of reminded me of Gloria. She presented herself in a similar way to Gloria, so maybe they could have been a match. But what the heck was going on in that scene? Joanna was telling John that he looked tired and he needed a little nip and tuck. She seemed to be trying to make him feel good, but I got the sense that she was making him feel bad. And even after he said no many times he scoffed at the idea of getting plastic surgery, and she was still keeping on about it. What did it matter to her if John Abbott got a facelift? Was she selling plastic surgery subscriptions or what? She was pushing so hard, it was like a sales pitch. Did she have some kind of deal with the doctor that she gets a percentage of every sale of every customer she brings in? I mean, it was such a hard sell. I don't get it. To the best of my research, John didn't get a facelift. I don't know. I looked around. I tried to find out. I didn't see any mention of John actually going through with the facelift. If I had to wager a guess, again, this is well before my viewing time, I almost want to say that this whole line of dialogue about the plastic surgery was Y&R trying to be modern and relevant and cutting edge. I think Y&R was trying to show the viewer that this was the lifestyle of the rich and famous. This was the thing to do. Catherine had her first facial rejuvenation in 1984. So maybe they were now trying to demonstrate that men can do it too? I mean, Joanna had that handy little fact in her back pocket about how 50% of the plastic surgery patients now are men. I'm surprised she didn't bust out a brochure and a little clipboard with the pen attached to it by a chain, with a chain, and forced him to sign up. I mean, if she had pressed on him for a little while longer, she may have gotten another sign-up to meet her quota. Tuesday's episode was preempted, and usually Y&R posts the episode at night to CBS.com, but it wasn't there. I checked their website like a fiend for 2 days straight, and it never showed up. I'm not even kidding. With everything else that was going on with the house, I had the whole site on refresh, like a constant loop of refresh, and I never got the episode. I don't know if it's there now. I finally stopped looking because I was able to kind of watch the episode on a blog spot site, which I'm very grateful for. I'm glad I got to at least get the sense of it, but it was not HD. It was a really small screen and there were some ads and stuff on it. So first of all, no screen caps for that episode. the Nick and Sharon episode. And that really breaks my heart because you know how obsessed I am with my screen caps, and now I don't have any from this really adorable episode. But second of all, I don't know how people watch and enjoy TV on their phone. I can't relate. I need the episode to be large enough so that I can really see it. And I feel like I missed so many wonderful details that were put into Nick's surprise fantasy sex tent. It was a sex tent. If we're really honest with ourselves, they were going to have sex in it. So he set up the tent so that they could have foreplay and then sex in it. I guess that's all that matters, really. Oh. But yeah, I don't know if it was the smallness of my screen, but I just couldn't even tell 100% what the fantasy theme was. Because at first I thought that it was a woodland fairy tale theme, but then later on I was getting an Arabian Nights theme. I think that's it. I think it was supposed to be Arabian, I loved it. I would have loved to have seen everything else that the set had. I would have loved to have gotten a better look at the outfits that Nick had perfectly tailored and laid out for them. Nick knew all of his wife's sizes, all of them. And he had her a dress made. He called up George, his tailor, and he said, 32, 24, 36, make it happen, George. Oh, I'm surprised that what Nick had designed for Sharon was that tasteful. Surprised he didn't just cut to the chase. I loved Sharon playing along, though, going along with the idea that, oh, they just bumbled into this fantasy. And then they just kind of settled down into enjoying their time together. Honestly, of all of the romantic gestures this week, and again, this is why it makes it so much more heartbreaking that I didn't get to see it in detail. I think this is the romantic gesture that I would select, that I'm going to vote for in the poll as the gesture that I would most like to have. A fantasy tent in the woods. That works for me. As long as, okay, the tent has to be air conditioned and it has to be sealed tight because I'm not going to be getting bitten up and eaten up alive by bugs. Bugs love me, so I always smell good. And so they want that. So we have to make sure that the tent is sealed tight. And also I ain't sleeping on the floor of it. We're either going to have to go home that night, or you're going to have to set up some kind of comfy king-size bed. So the tent has to be large. It has to be like a wedding tent. I mean, Nick did it right. But I'm just saying, if you're going to try to give me the romantic tent, sex tent, don't be trying to pass off an old rickety camping tent as a romantic gesture to me. It has to be luxury all the way, or we are finished. Another thing that I feel I didn't get to fully experience from the Tuesday episode is my David Tom Billy, with his boyish charm and that awesome chemistry between he and Ashley B and her Mackenzie. They were just so good together in 2001, and I don't understand what exactly happened that made Y&R recast both of those characters in 2002. So, I mean, within the next year, they were both different actors. And I wonder if there was something unhappy going on behind the scenes because it was a really popular couple and a really popular storyline. And as we know, Heather Tom left the show a year after her brother in 2003. And I guess she was kind of publicly saying that she didn't like what was going on behind the scenes. So what happened? David Tom must have been on good terms with the show because Y&R tried bringing him back as Billy in 2014. Maybe you don't even remember that, but he did come back. But I mean, 12 years had gone by. I think the momentum that actor had built up was gone, and the character had changed. I mean, we had a total of 6 Billies over the course of 20 years. 6 Billies in 20 years. That's a lot of switching around. Plus, when David Tom came back in 2014, he was stepping in after Billy Miller had left the role. And those are some big shoes to fill. I mean, you saw it there on Friday. Billy Miller was charm. It was going to be a hard act to follow him. In fact, most fans probably didn't even remember David Tom when he came back, but I did. And I was so happy. The Billy Mac Brittany triangle is actually very similar to the Kyle Lola Summer triangle because Mac was very down to earth. She was the street smart girl next door, just like Lola. And Brittany was the spoiled rich girl, just like Summer. Billy was the guy caught in the middle, and he was choosing the type of girl that he was supposed to be with. I mean, he could choose the girl that would make his mother happy, Brittany, or he could choose the type of girl who unexpectedly captured his heart. So, I thought it was interesting to watch that triangle, get a little taste of that triangle in light of the triangle that we have going on in the show in 2020. It was just so clear that Billy was going to choose the offbeat girl. That was his true love. But unlike Kyle, Billy didn't go to the trouble of marrying her, only to turn around 6 months later and decide that he wanted to marry the princess instead. Wasn't it interesting to see in 2001 the very beginnings of how Michael and Isabella were tag teaming Paul and Chris to destroy their marriage? Isabella had wormed her way into living with Paul in Paul and Chris's apartment, right? Under the guise of protecting her from her ex-husband. And all the while, Isabella is subtly taunting Chris over it. And on the side, Michael was offering Chris a job in Australia just to make sure that Chris and Paul didn't even stand a chance at reconciliation. Christine was never going to fall in love and live happily ever after with Michael. After everything they had been through, she was never going to fall in love with him, not deeply. I think she cares for him. She came to care for him, but she was never going to love him. Michael needed a woman, maybe a little less pristine than Christine, and that woman was Lauren. Michael's casino proposal to Lauren has got to be one of the best all-time marriage proposals in Y&R history. I'm not even exaggerating. I'm sure it's not just because they're my favorite couple. That was a good proposal. It was well done all around. The set was exquisite. Michael had each moment planned and timed to perfection, with the blackjack dealer flipping over 2 marry me cards And then it was just after Michael was kind of reassuring Lauren that the game wasn't rigged. And then all of a sudden the cashier shows up with the ring in the chips box that she was holding. It was just obviously incredibly thoughtful, incredibly planned. And I was fascinated to note that Lauren was feeling insecure in their relationship that night. I hadn't remembered that she didn't really know how deeply he loved her, that she was probably thinking they were about to break up. He wasn't being open enough about his affection for her, and then he goes and arranges this incredible evening of romance and love and this fun marriage proposal. Michael swept Lauren off her feet. Literally. That dance sequence gave me chills. It was so sexy and saucy and passionate, and the actors did a wonderful job of performing it. I think the cinematographer did a wonderful job of capturing all of their different movements, the dips, the twirls, the close-ups. It was just so cool, and it all felt so well planned on Y&R's part. I think they wanted to make this a legendary marriage proposal, and it was. Oh, I cannot believe that Y&R took me from the heights of ecstasy with Michael and Lauren's romance and then sunk me into the depths of sorrow with Cassie's imminent death, all in the same episode. I was a wreck. I was a wreck that day. Just imagine it. Okay. Part of the reason why Cassie's death was so impactful to me when it happened was highlighted perfectly in this episode. At the beginning of the episode, Nick and Sharon are there in the hospital waiting room, worried about their daughter, but fully believing that she was going to recover. All signs pointed to just another car crash. And just like Nick and Sharon, I expected Cassie to be up and walking around in a week. But at the end of that episode, we saw where the plot started to turn. The doctors were telling Nick and Sharon that Cassie wasn't getting better, or maybe she would have gotten better if she hadn't used the last of her life's fighting energy to get up out of the hospital bed, sneak out, and try to find Daniel to let him know that she was driving the car that night, that he was passed out in the back, and that he wasn't responsible for the accident that would ultimately claim Cassie's life. The part of the story that I had forgotten was that Cassie made it all the way to Crimson Lights. She found Lily and Daniel just as he was planning to run away. And Cassie collapsed on the floor before she could tell him anything. She was then rushed back to the hospital. And with her dying breath, Cassie told only Nick the truth that she was driving the car that night. Only Nick Nick is the only person who knew the secret that Cassie died with. He heard it directly from his dying daughter's lips before she slipped away. And he still pursued revenge on Daniel. I think he just simply couldn't believe it. I think he was in shock. How could Cassie have done that? It's his little girl. And on top of it, how could Cassie be gone? The larger shock. Cassie's death and all of it, totally rocked the foundation of everything in Nick and Sharon's world. It would never, ever be the same. And it's clear to me now that that's what the writers wanted. They wanted Nick and Phyllis together. So they killed Cassie to destroy Nick and Sharon. And they also cut Damon Porter, who seemed to be there developing a romance with Phyllis. Y&R just said, no, we're changing directions. Kill the kid and send away Damon Porter. He was really sexy too, by the way. He was this big, tall, sexy guy. He had a head full of dreadlocks, as I recall, when he was first on the show. And it was interesting because he had like all this hair and he had this very hippie, new age vibe. That's how the impression he made on me anyway. But then Y&R cut his dreadlocks and then they cut him and sealed the deal on Nick and Phyllis with the pregnancy. One of the most pivotal points in my nearly 30 years of watching Y&R was Cassie's death in 2005. The entire show would never be the same. Just as David Tom is my Billy, Michael Mooney is my Adam. All other Adams must bow to the man who pushed that character further than anyone else and into the forefront where he is today. But also like David Tom, I do wonder if Y&R were to ever bring him back to that role, or if Michael Mooney ever agreed to return to the role on some other planet, or maybe let's say it's a dozen years from now. I do wonder if the magic would still be there. Would too much time have passed? I don't know. But I do know that the magic of Mooney was so magic. He just had this way of allowing the Adam character to be pushed in these unbelievable and sometimes downright gruesome directions. And yet there was something so compelling and forgivable about him, which is the reason why Sharon could fall in love with him in the first place. We've got to see that volcano episode soon, right? Sharon versus Skye at the volcano, where Skye accidentally falls in and Victor sees the whole thing. That was the topic of one of my first Y&R Chat podcasts. Let's see, it was dated the week of December 27th, 2010. I haven't re-listened to it, but as soon as I get my exercise space back, which, oh yes, has been disrupted by all of this, along with everything else in my life. As soon as I can listen to podcasts again, I am going to go back and listen to that episode from what happened at the volcano, because I remember the cool volcano moment. And I remember Skye was an old girlfriend, old friend, old cohort of Adam's, but I didn't really remember what led up to her taking the long dip into the hot lava. And the Y&R Wiki really let me down this week for, I think, the first time, because the entry on Skye was really poorly written, and it didn't explain at all why Adam was in jail. But according to Soaps in Depth, who came through for me for once, Skye had blackmailed Adam into a loveless marriage. Then she disappeared, and he went to jail suspected of having murdered her. And it was later revealed that Victor had actually helped Skye fake her own death to set Adam up for it. Sharon was there, through the bars, through the prison bars. Sharon was trying to clear his name by hunting Skye down in Hawaii and proving that she was alive so that way Adam would be off the hook. But Victor was at the volcano too, and he covered up all of the evidence, all of it. Wait a minute, didn't Victor also frame Adam for another murder? Framed for Skye's murder, and then didn't he frame Adam for Constance's murder, the older lady that Adam met through Sage? So much framing for murder and attempted murder between Victor and Adam, between father and son. And still, they weren't worthy of a Rivals Week episode. Okay, now I'm just being a jerk. But if I'm honest here, Marcy Ryland is my Abby. She was awesome. Marcy Ryland nailed everything that the character of Abby should be. Innately self-absorbed, and sometimes kind of unaware of her privilege, but also funny and charming, and you kind of can't help but like her because she's also a little ditzy, and it's fun to watch her get egg on her pretty privileged face. That's how I want my Abby. And she was super duper crazy freaking hot with Daniel. Daniel was just hot there. Oh my goodness, 2010? He was at his peak hotness right there. That hair, oh my goodness. There was a lot of hair in that relationship. What a pair, that hair. Y&R should have held on to both of those actors tight, but they didn't. I don't know why. There's so many questionable decisions that I'm seeing through the course of this classic episode journey. I liked Daniel. He fit. And Daniel also made a good best friend for Kevin. Daniel and Kevin and Abby and Chloe, they were a fun foursome. Chloe and Abby were two little weird birds that nested in the same tree. Chloe and Abby were both kind of charmingly unaware of themselves. Like Chloe calling Kevin her ducky all the time. It was cute and clever at first, but just like in the movie Pretty in Pink, Chloe was totally unaware of how this was making Kevin feel. But as the time wore on, his feelings for her had developed, and they were real, and they deserved to be acknowledged. But I will give Chloe a little credit. because after Kevin blew her off at the New Year's Eve party, she went home and she got into her sheepy pajamas and her bunny slippers and her pint of ice cream. And she was saying to Esther about how Kevin led her on with friendship, saying that that's all he wanted. And then he ended up wanting more, and that made her feel like the deal changed. And I think that's a really fair argument. Chloe went into their relationship just wanting a friend, and Kevin said, okay, and then he changed his mind. I think that happens a lot more than we realize between friends when one becomes attracted. But lucky for Ducky, Chloe had her realization that she wanted more than just friendship from Kevin too. So she threw on her sweater and she ran all the way to Jimmy's, and she caught Kevin just as he was walking out on his disaster date with some girl who wasn't Chloe. And how dare she say, well, Chloe just sounds like kind of a bitch. That actress did a good job on her delivery with that line. I could feel for that actress having that bad date with Kevin. That moment was funny, but it wasn't the moment of the episode. I mean, the moment of the episode was where the two lovers first realize that they are together in love at the same time, and they have the grand romantic union in the street with the kiss, maybe some rain, or maybe some fireworks, or maybe a crazy ex lurking around in the background. It was straight out of a movie. Was Lillian Kane's 2010 wedding in Provence the actual last destination that we've had? Can you think of any other destination weddings we've had since Lillian Kane in 2010? Could it be 10 years since we've actually gone on location for a wedding? And not just on a sound stage? I mean, maybe there have been some destination weddings that were recreated on a soundstage, but they were on location, and I can't remember the last time we did that for a wedding. I do remember Adam and Sharon were on location in New Orleans, and that was in 2010 also. So 2010, Y&R must have had some budget. Where'd that go? Or where'd they reallocate it? I want to allocate some budget to some more of these destination episodes. They're fabulous. Oh, Lily looked so beautiful at her wedding. I gotta say it. Lily looked more beautiful in her wedding dress than any bride has ever looked ever. The way she wore that backless dress, and it just hugged her perfectly. Perfectly! Lily looked amazing. Wearing Colleen's bracelet and Drusilla's hair comb that were given to her by Abby and Olivia before the ceremony. Lily's hair was perfect. Her makeup was perfect. There was that soft, diffused lighting. Can you not see why this couple was so swoony? And Kane looked so handsome and so in love. And I believe to this day that Kane meant every word of his wedding vows to Lily. He never stopped loving her, not for one single second, even though he did accidentally sleep with somebody else. But sometimes that happens, so come on. Lily had her whole family there with her. They flew out a lot of people for this wedding. And only Jill came from Kane's side. Genevieve had to manipulate her way into finding the location of the wedding just so that she could stand afar and watch her son on his happiest day. It must hurt a lot to know that your son doesn't want you at his wedding. Ow. But Genevieve was no Mother of the Year. And I suppose that you could argue she was just as bad at being a mother as Colin was at being a father. Or I don't know. That's a tough call. But it's just Kane's family was nothing like Lily's family, and I think he felt so good being accepted into the Winters clan. Neil was he was so protective of his daughter, but when he did open his heart to Kane, he did open it. I choked up. I totally choked up when Lily was with her dad in her bridal suite, and Neil was acting like it didn't bother him to not walk her down that insanely long aisle. But then he was being so happy when she changed her mind. I just think those moments feel even sweeter to me now, rewatching them, because I'm realizing that those moments are now Lily's most precious memories of her late father. And I'm just bearing witness to it. Oh, what a good app. I also thought it was a really cute and funny moment when Devon was teasing Kane about losing the rings. And then Neil was scolding him, like, you don't mess with a man on his wedding day about the rings. That's just the unspoken rule. I thought it was nice that Devon had invited his estranged mother to the wedding, too. Harmony was really gaining a foothold in Genoa City, and then she just disappeared. Y&R just cut her. They never, they just weren't committed to developing that character, and you could feel it. You could tell it. Kind of like Anna. They just, they didn't put all their effort into it. Harmony was there, but she could have been more. I always liked her because I thought that the actress brought a good vibe to the show. I mean, that actress was a professional. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was such a good get, and Y&R let her slip. She would have been a great match for Neil. And Sophia knew it. Sophia did not like Harmony. She picked up on Neil's feelings right there. Sophia had the baby, but Harmony definitely was playing Neil's song. Proud of myself for that one. Lily and Kane's Provence wedding was just the thing we needed to cap off Romance Week and launch into Wedding Week. Let's just sit back and hold on to your champagne because we have got 5 more wedding episodes coming up next week. We have Nick and Sharon's 1996 wedding on Monday, the original Nick and Sharon wedding. But then we're going to back up and we have Danny and Cricket's 1990 wedding on Tuesday. Now, this is the episode I want to see most, I think. This I got to see, 1990. But I'm confused as to why we're not going in chronological order. I think this is the first time that Y&R's done that since we've started our theme weeks. We're going from 96 backwards, 96 on Monday, backwards into 1990 on Tuesday. Wonder why. But then I guess we're going to continue to go forward because we're going to have Malcolm and Olivia on Wednesday, which I think Which is interesting, though, because we also saw them this week going through their divorce on Tuesday's episode, and there was the question of visitation with Nate, and yes, Mamie was there again, being Mamie and amazing. But then, okay, this is going to be a good one. On Thursday, we're going to have Phyllis and Nick's country bar wedding, which was a fun one, as I recall. I want to see that. That might be my number 2 one I want to see. And then rounding out the week, we're going to have Nikki and Victor's 2013 wedding, which, to be honest with you, I couldn't pick up out of a lineup. I have no idea which one of their weddings this is. Victor and Nikki have had so many weddings, and outside of the first one, all of the other ones just kind of blend together for me. Poor Delia Abbott. Ugh, Y&R just simply tortured that poor girl. I had completely forgotten that she had leukemia. How awful! Y&R gave her cancer and then let her recover just long enough to then run her over with a car. Why do they do this? Why? Why is killing off a kid seen as a good, quick way to create some drama? It is so cheap and ugly. Ugh. It's hard to not think of Delia without thinking about what she's been through. It was also pretty ugly how Victor was letting Billy rot away in a Myanmar prison while his daughter was sick. I think that Billy had left Genoa City for quite some time. He was in Asia. He got himself into some trouble, as Billy is apt to do. He got himself thrown in prison, and then Victor found him and blackmailed him. Victor offered to get Billy out of the Myanmar jail only so that Billy could be a bone marrow donor for his dying daughter. But then in exchange, Victor told Billy to stay away from Victoria and Delia, or Victor would send him back to Myanmar prison. Oosh. Ooch. But Myanmar is where Billy met Chelsea. Chelsea was a con. She pegged him as a wealthy guy, decided to make him her mark, and the idea was she got pregnant with his child to try to get him to pay her to go away. And to not to mention it to Victoria, she tried to blackmail him with a child pregnancy in exchange for money. I don't know how that's a good idea, because, I mean, at the end of the day, you're either going to be stuck with the baby or you're going to have to give away your baby, and I don't know which one's worse. I don't think she thought through this plan. Maybe she just wanted to blackmail him for the sex, and maybe the child wasn't part of the original plan. I'm not sure. I think I prefer the idea that that it was. But surprise on her, Billy decided he wanted the child, so he told Victoria that this happened and that Chelsea was pregnant, and I think they were having trouble conceiving. I think Victoria was having trouble conceiving. And so they came up with the idea that they wanted to just raise Chelsea's child together. And that child is Johnny. Chelsea she had a lot of antics. She was a bad girl when she came to town, lest we should forget. Chelsea had a bunch of antics, and Billy and Victoria decided they wanted to offer to let her stay in the house above their garage for the duration of her pregnancy. I think Chelsea was threatening to drink alcohol or to harm herself, and as she was doing anything she could to con her way into Billy's life, and this is what got her in the door. And then Anita showed up right behind her, poking and prodding the whole way. And Chelsea tried really hard to start up a romance with Billy, but he didn't love her. He loved Victoria. So Chelsea just had to ultimately offer to give the baby to them up for adoption. And I still can't believe that Y&R never decided to flip that into a custody battle. Like, at least a couple of months or maybe years later, they just never touched that. It's surprising. I bet they intended to, and just it never got picked up, because then they decided to put Chelsea with Adam, and that was the focus, and she was going to have her family with Adam. Did anybody else notice how much cuter Victoria's house used to be? I just must have houses on the brain. But it was yellow and white and bright and gold. That house was much more my style. What's the greatest decade of Y&R? I think that this poll question is my greatest poll of all time. I love this question, and I am excited to tell you the winner. The greatest decade of all time in Y&R, as voted by the Y&R chatters, is the 1990s. Yeah, baby. 90s representing. I was pleased personally with those results because that's how I voted. I 100% agree. The 90s was awesome, and it slammed all the other decades by far. It got a whopping 45% of the vote. Yes. Second choice, I completely agree with. The second place winning decade is the 1980s. Totally agree. Followed by the 2000s. That got the third place. All right. Yeah. Some good stuff happened in the 2000s for sure. But then in fourth place, we have the 70s, which I can't help wonder if it's because I feel like the majority of 70s viewers are probably not still around today. If you are an original 70s viewer, you need to have a special badge that you wear, and it should give you all access pass to anywhere you want to go because you are special. Like, that is your Y&R badge of honor. If you watched this show from the beginning, you deserve to be proud. And I can't help wondering, though, if that's a shrinking few. And so the people who were watching in the 70s voted for that decade, but I wonder if the fact that it came in fourth place is mostly because newer viewers aren't as familiar with it, and Y&R doesn't tote it. They don't show us the 70s. We still haven't gotten any 70s. None in all of these classics. Those episodes are gone. They are like a lost. I mean, I think there is some on YouTube, but we don't have high quality versions of anything. Yeah, there's definitely 70s episodes on YouTube, but the quality isn't good. Y&R doesn't try to interest people in the 70s. So I feel like maybe that's why that result is there. But the most hilarious, to me, result of this entire poll is the fact that the 2010s, the decade we just got out of, was last. And it was dead last. It got one vote. I was all week. Well, actually, it took about halfway through the week, and I was thinking to myself, please let there be 0 votes for the 2010s, because that is so much more dramatic if not one single person picked this last decade. I mean, what does that say? But so there was like this evil little part of me that was kind of hoping it would get 0 votes. But then right midweek, somebody came in and gave the 2010s some love, and I wish I would have heard from that person. I really do. Whoever voted 2010s, give me your reasons why, because I'm not knocking it exactly. All of the decades can be considered good. I think Y&R's baseline is good, but we're talking greatest decade. I don't know if it's the 2010s, but if you do, I think you should speak up. This is a safe place. I mean, you're wrong, but you're safe to talk about. I'm just being a brat. Now I'm just being a brat. Oh, I think we do wear our badges of honor for how long we've been watching the show. I mean, if you've got decades of viewing under your belt, I mean, you got to be proud of it. You know, not everybody has the 45-star badge, but those are gold. But a lot of us have got 30. I'll always be considered a newbie at 30. But we still love our new community members too. I don't mean to dismiss you. I'm just playing. Let's get to some comments though about the greatest decade, because I was really excited to hear what everybody said about this. I really truly feel like this is one of my best polls ever. Anna says, I loved the 80s episodes, but that's probably because I started watching in 1981. So the 80s are the best around. I'm an 80s girl. Yes, I know. It's good. It would be number 2 for me. No doubt about it. And that was the poll result too. Lisa115 says, I have watched on and off since the 70s, but my favorite decade has got to be the 90s. I loved the action, such as the Masquerade Ball and David Kimball dying in the trash compactor, and Michael and Christine's sexual harassment storyline, culminating in Michael digging a tunnel into her apartment and Paul rescuing her. I also loved all of the corporate rivalry between Victor and Jack, and of course, my favorite storyline of all time started at the very end of the 90s. The battle over Victor's sperm. The battle over Victor's sperm is your favorite all-time storyline. Yes! That's awesome. It really, truly is. It reaffirms to me that there's a little something for everyone on this show, because that would be so far down on my list. The Victor battle over his sperm, but I just love that. I don't know, that just tickles me that you're out there and you remember that as fondly as I remember Victor at the farm. That's so great. So great. Diana says, I have to agree with you, Lisa. I chose the 90s as well because of the Michael and Christine sexual harassment storyline and David Kimball. The 80s is a very close second, and it also has many great storylines such as Farren and Andy, Sean Garrett, Brad Carlton, and the tension he caused between Tracy and her sister Ashley, just to name a few, although there are many more. I love that so many people did choose the 90s though, but have some good memories of the 80s, which is what preceded it. Victoria says, I voted for the 90s. I began watching in the 70s. I took a brief break for school, but then began back again in the late 80s. It was a difficult decision because all the decades have their highlights, but the 90s is when Nick and Victoria were advanced in age and the Winters and the Fishers were introduced. I think the 90s was a very pivotal decade, to say the least. I mean, yes, there was a lot of really good action, but I think you make a good point that we also had a lot of the current families and current major players on the show, of modern era introduced in the 90s. And those, what was created and established in the 90s is very much played out to what we see today. There is a direct line. Well, Marianne V says, I voted for the 90s. I think they had better sets, probably bigger budgets, good storylines. Today's soaps need to show more of the characters' lives, not just in the boardroom. They need to bring back Mamie and Miguel and not just have Esther on the show. They need more personal stories, not just corporate takeovers. Some medical stories would be good too. Oh, well, I like the personal stories. I like some corporate in there, but it has become a behemoth part of the show over the years. Medical stories I can do without, but hey, remember our little clinic, our New Hope clinic? Remember that? We'll be getting back to that someday. Well, Gary weighing in here for the 70s and says, my apologies, but it's the 70s, the greatest decade. Yes, I realize that others can have different opinions, I suppose. Oh, sorry. But the early stories are the ones that stick to those who watched them like glue to the ribs, because those stories were so amazingly drawn out that when they finally came to a head, it was the emotional punch heard around the world. There was no emotional filler, or not much. The sets were more distinctive and original. The understatement was used then that you don't find in the Grand Phoenix or at the sister establishment, the Society. Basically, soaps are all about tugging at your emotions, and nothing helps that better along than a good musical score playing in the background, highlighting the particular tone of a scene that you are currently watching. Y&R had that. It possessed a kind of magic not seen before. And as everyone knows, whether you were alive to watch in those days or not, Y&R was much tighter then. But following decades provided a quicker paced, breezier show to drop in and drop out of, and a lot of people have more fun with that. Oh, okay, I should have paused in the middle because I have to comment that you just really can't underestimate the power of the musical score. And we don't have that today. That's something that I really have noticed and connected with while watching our classic episodes. They're playing so much score that I recognize and that I loved, and then just evoke something in me naturally, because it's like, just like over time, it's like, oh, that song means this. I should feel this. And I do. And over time, Y&R marginalized their classic musical score, and they don't really do a lot to present anything, any new classics. I mean, we don't have any, the music is just not as good now. I can't help it. That's how I feel. I mean, even like New Year's Eve in that episode, I thought they had some good music going on for the Kevin and Chloe and Daniel and Abby inside of the bar, Jimmy's bar. But outside of that, I haven't seen more Y&R episodes having music that's very distinct even. Well, let's see. Oh, Gary also asked, an interesting question would be, how is 80s Y&R different from Y&R in 96 versus Y&R in the 2000s? So this is an interesting question, Gary. Well, how is it different? And more than anything, I think you can see the difference in the budgets. I think it used to be a much bigger production, and now it's a tight, little efficient ship. I think your description of the stories is perfect too. It used to be long and drawn out and emotionally rich, and now it's designed more for viewers to dip in and dip out at will, and maybe that's because Y&R's audience is not quite as captive as it used to be. I am going to blaze through a few more comments here because I feel like my time is waning. I don't know how much I'm going to have left. So I'm going to just pick a couple comments about the episodes from this week, starting with Ellen, who says, "Has hell frozen over? I do declare, I believe I just saw Michael Mooney as Adam Newman in the scenes with Sharon on my TV. Wow, let me catch a breath. Okay, he really is Adam. No doubt about it. I love the intensity and focus that he brings to every line. It's too bad he messed up so badly on set and had to be fired. It is kind of funny that they chose to run an episode featuring Adam in jail looking all disheveled. No fancy party attire for Michael Mooney. Nope. That's pretty shady. I know. Ellen, I chimed in at the website and saying I thought of you immediately the moment that I saw his face. Ellen has been at the forefront of the Missing Adam Newman campaign since these classics have begun. And she responded, "Aw, I'm thinking of you whenever Kane and his dimples are on my screen. The writers should be plotting his return to Genoa City right now if they have any sense." Okay, well, yes, it's Kane's dimples, but also the smile. Did you see the happy smile on his face? He has such a handsome smile. Take me to France, Kane. Diana says, "I completely forgot about Sophia and Moses. When the new episodes were still airing, we've not heard them being mentioned very often. It would be nice to see them pay a visit when the new episodes air. Moses could hang out with Faith, as I believe they would be close to the same age. Maybe even a tween romance could evolve between them. Ooh. No doubt about it, Y&R is going to age Moses someday." What age they make him is our best guess. I mean, they could age him and now he's 40. You just never know, but I bet you that they will age him someday. Well, from France all the way to the Genoa City hot dog cart, Superplex asks, "How far is the Chancellor Mansion from Jimmy's?" Well, Superplex, I imagine that the mansion is on the outskirts of town and that Jimmy's is downtown. So, it's probably going to take... It's going to take at least 35 minutes to get between the two places, right? So I think the larger point you're making there is, how the heck did Chloe get there so fast? I guess through movie magic. Anna says, "I know this is probably not popular, but I really miss Jimmy's Bar. I felt like a lot of drama happened there, and it was a place for everybody to go to let their hair down. A far cry from society." Yes, Jimmy's was casual, but without being a total dump. So, yeah. Well, okay. Leslie weighing in here and giving Matt Miller some love. Leslie says, "I am glad that they did a Matt Newman episode. So that those who never had seen him can replace that image of the 1 or 2 day miscast that we had on a year or two ago." Oh, okay. So first of all, Leslie, you like Matt. You got good vibes from Matt. I think this is the second time we've seen him in flashbacks since the classics have started airing, and both times, he seemed skeevy. I don't know why. And those are the only impressions I have of him. But I remember you're referencing the miscast. It was in 2018 that Y&R brought Matt back, but he was not the original actor, and it was he was different. He was not at all like the original actor. The miscast, as you call him, he was much more brooding. He didn't give me Victor Brother vibes. But then again, neither does Matt. Maybe I need to experience the magic of Matt. I will look into that promptly. Daisy says, Paul was just too trusting sometimes. He believed that Isabella was not flirting with him, and he believed that rather than listening to and believing Christine. Which brings me to an episode I wish they'd show, which is when Paul was bringing food to a locked up Michael Scott, boyfriend of Victor's wife, Julia, and Julia found out, hence the locked up Michael Scott. But Paul was not good at detecting anything then, although he did come to his senses with Julia's help. I'd love to see that episode. Ooh, so is that the one where Victor fed him rats? That'd be a good one to see. They remastered a little slice of that for the Victor Newman celebration, so maybe they had that one on deck and we could see it? Leslie says, I loved Andy. And did everybody know he's the late President Gerald Ford's son? I'm sure it's been mentioned before, but I don't remember, so I thought I would mention it. I forgot that, Leslie. Completely forgot that. Gary says, retro soap reporters of the period wanted to know if Andy Richards was receiving Secret Service protection on the set of Y&R, given that he was the son of the son of the once president. That he was once the son of the president. Yes, I see it now. I don't know if I knew it, but I see it now. I mean, the resemblance is actually very strong between them. Cool, right? That's cool. Kamna says, okay, so I'm curious. Did John ever get that eye lift? The whole scene was so bizarre, and I was rooting for John to stand his ground. Well, Kamna, Gary chimed in here and says that yes, John did get the eye lift. I mean, I guess it's, why would they go to the trouble of having her push so hard for it if he didn't get it? But I didn't find a word about it online. Maybe my detective skills have failed me, but Gary says yes. Do we have any other confirmers out there? Did John get the eye lift? Let us know. Well, I'll end up on this comment here. Victoria says, oh my gosh, I just saw the beginning of Monday's episode. When Nikki walked in to begin her date with Matt, my breath was taken away. Unfortunately, it was not from how wonderful she looked. What was hair and wardrobe thinking? She looked like a mashup of Laura Ingalls Wilder and Mae West. They dressed her in a dreadful pink pleated dress with the gigantic puffy sleeves and gave her huge, weirdly shaped hair. I would have loved to have heard Melody Thomas Scott's first thoughts when she faced the mirror. Oh, wow. It was a dress. I mean, I appreciate it in a way because now we can look at it in retrospect and say, wow. But you know what? As crazy as it is, that was probably some heightened style of the time. I mean, I don't know for sure. I mean, Cabbage Patch Dolls were in, and that was what I was getting from the whole thing. She looked like a doll. But I can't imagine that everybody was gasping and saying, oh, this is awful. I imagine that they were gasping and saying, wow, at the time. I mean, I'm going to guess that what Melody Thomas Scott thought when she looked in that mirror was, yeah, I look good. Oh, I forgot our Who Said It quote. That's how out of my routine I am. Ugh, what a disaster. The playground is closed. That was our quote from last week. The playground is closed. So is mine. The answer to that is Jill. Jill was the person who said that last week. She was talking to her much younger boyfriend, Sean. She was breaking up with him, and she told him, "No, go away, little boy. The playground is closed." Daisy, Henry, XRP Swan, Susan, Victoria, Kamna, and Ambreen all got it right. Here's a new one for ending Romance Week. Here's our quote. The white horse went lame. Wah, wah. In a week of romance, the Who Said It quote is, the white horse went lame. If you think you know who said it, you can go to yrchat.com to leave your guess. And if you get it right, I will give you your shout out on next week's Y&R Chat. I actually can't believe I've been able to chat for as long as I have. How nice. I think this is exactly what I needed. Oh, it's been such a hard week. I had no sex tent set up for me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should just take the yacht. Maybe that would make it. I mean, yachts have roofs, but they're less complicated. So maybe I should just go live on my private yacht. Fine, yacht me. Okay, I gotta go. I love you guys. I will see you next week. Bye.